My homophobic sister keeps trying to break my boyfriend and I up to get some fruity schlong. Turns out a few of you guys were right and she gave most of the family a made-up story. She told the rest of the family, except my parents since they knew the real story from the start, and her friends that when she moved in I was a complete jerk. I made her do all the chores, cook every day, yelled at her all the time and tried to make her feel insecure about herself, but she didn't because she was a girl. She also said how my boyfriend was not happy in his relationship with me and basically made me look like some demon who came out from Satan's booty hole. I was able to slap some sense into a few of the more open-minded people with the help of my boyfriend to give them the real story. Most of them didn't even apologize and just stopped bothering me. I was able to get in contact with one of my sister's friends to ask about my sister's reason for the whole breakup thing. Turns out the reason my sister and her ex broke up was because she was supposed to take care of her ex's dog but instead sold the dog because she didn't want to take care of it while he was away. She wasn't even sad that they broke up, she was upset because she wasn't allowed to keep the house and all the stuff inside that wasn't even hers. I don't know why she even thought that she'd be allowed to keep it after selling the guy's dog. The texts from my family did calm down from a few, but my parents and sister continue spamming me with trash talk. It got to a point that the day after I made the first post, I got a threat letter from my sister, saying how I must break up with my boyfriend or else she'll destroy my reputation and everything I have, and also decided to be petty and write how she'll stab me. Unfortunately for her, when the letter came in I was out grocery shopping, but my boyfriend was home with his family who was over for dinner, and angering a family of 2 parents who have 9 kids, 5 adults and 4 teenagers, is not a pretty sight as my boyfriend described it. My boyfriend's mother called my mother and started asking about the letter my sister sent. My mother denied it and said that my sister didn't do anything of that sort. My boyfriend's mother wanted to say more but my mother hung up on her. After we cooked and had dinner, my boyfriend's father suggested that they'd stay over in case my parents or sister tried to disturb us again. My boyfriend and I agreed to this and we set up a few spare rooms for them since we do have a pretty big house. I did call the police for the threat letter and they said they'd look into it. After that we simply went to bed. The next day we did hear loud banging on the front door, with my sister screaming to be let in. One of my boyfriend's brothers opened the door and my mom and dad walked right in and demanded of me to talk to them alone, but my boyfriend's parents cut them off and tried telling them that my sister is out of line and they needed to respect that they crossed many boundaries. Both my parents and my boyfriend's parents then got into a heated argument. And what did my sister do? She tried to get closer to my boyfriend while the argument was occurring. My boyfriend then started shouting at her, calling her a psychopath and that she's annoying. My parents then started yelling at my boyfriend that it's no big deal and that's just how girls act around their crush. I did get fed up and told my parents and sister that they needed to leave before I called the police. They refused and my mom seriously said you should be a good brother and make your sister happy. Let her go on one date with your boyfriend and we'll leave. How else will they know if they click or not? You're basically ruining your sister's love life by being so selfish. My boyfriend and his siblings all immediately shut her up and tore her up for saying such stuff. My sister then started crying and tried to go to my boyfriend for a hug. One of my boyfriend's sisters slapped her and said how she should be ashamed of herself for trying to get to a gay-taken man. My sister seemed to have lost it and tried to lunge at me while screaming how much she hates me. She shoved me onto the ground and grabbed a weapon from her pocket and stabbed me. It was obvious she tried to go for my throat but instead went to my shoulder. My boyfriend yanked her off me and he and his siblings started to gang up on her. My boyfriend's mother helped me up and treated the stab wound with whatever we had as it was bleeding quite a lot and pretty deep and she's a nurse. My boyfriend's father called the police. My parents tried to take my sister and leave, but my boyfriend and his siblings kept them in place until the police arrived. Once the police got there, my parents and sister got arrested and I got sent to the hospital because the bleeding wouldn't stop. I got a few stitches on my shoulder now and it's a bit difficult to move with my left arm. When my sister got questioned by the police, her smartass kept shouting threats and that she meant to slice my throat, not my shoulder. What the F? For some reason she also kept crying out my boyfriend's name, as if he's gonna defend her or help her. My sister got sent to jail and my parents got a restraining order. But due to their actions, my little brother, 8, got taken out of their house and put into my care. 3 of my boyfriend's siblings are currently staying over, because they think my parents might come back and try to take my little brother away or hurt me. For 2 days it has been peaceful. Maybe some other family members will come by or my sister's friends will try something, but right now I'm safe. My boyfriend, his sister and my little brother are currently hanging out playing some video games. He's planning on taking my brother to a zoo since my little brother loves animals and never went to one. I'll update if anything else happens.
My lesbian daughter is trying to force our whole family to dye our hair for Pride Month, so I gave her a brutal reality check. So my 15-year-old daughter has recently come as out lesbian. She is our only child, and my husband and I were extremely supportive of her. We have since stayed up many nights, doing research on how to better support your child after coming out. But our daughter almost seems to have gotten a whole lot worse attitude-wise. Since coming out, she has made every single conversation she has about gay people, about the discrimination they face, which are real issues and I can't deny that. My main problem is when she tells us to try harder to be allies to her. At first my husband and I tolerated this kind of things from her, but as time went on it has become harder and harder to keep her mouth shut. It doesn't help that if anyone doesn't agree with her on a topic, even if it's anything not at all related to her sexuality, she is quick to call homophobia. My husband and I have become victims of these things a lot, and it hurts a lot when the daughter that you love dearly and truly support claims that you are homophobic and don't love her. It all boiled over yesterday night during dinner. It is Pride Month, and my daughter has dyed her hair in order to support it. Cool, I have nothing against it. I think Pride is a good cause to support, and my husband and I support it myself. We promised my daughter we would attend the parade with her a few weeks ago. Well, last night my daughter started talking about Pride, and how important it was for everyone to do as much as they can in order to show support. She then went on to say that she thinks it's disgusting how a straight person will not openly show support during Pride, and compared it to racism. We got into a conversation about it, and during it our daughter told us she would like us to dye our hair for the month of Pride. She said it can be any color, as long as the color is on the rainbow. I told my daughter that as much as we support her, my husband and I were not going to do that. We told her we don't see how us dyeing our hair was going to do anything really. She blew up, calling us homophobic, saying that we don't support her, saying we're anti-gay and so on. My husband was the one who actually had enough and he yelled stop so loud that even I got scared for a second. Our daughter instantly got quiet but I could see she was still angry. My husband started speaking and told her to check her privilege. She tried asking how she was privileged, and my husband replied. He stated that she is gay, and is fortunate enough to live in a country where the LGBTQ community are not seen as animals. He told her that she gets to prance around calling people names if they disagree with her and call homophobia if she doesn't like something. My husband then pulled something up on his phone. He told my daughter to look. It was a video of gay people in less progressive countries speaking about how they were treated, followed by a video of a gay person being punished. The video was horrible. Once it ended, my husband told her that this was the reality for a lot of gay people in the world, and the fact she screams homophobia at us for not dyeing our hair during Pride Month is incredibly insensitive to gay people everywhere else in the world. He told her that not dyeing our hair isn't homophobia, and if she thinks she is then she has been brainwashed. My daughter left without saying much, and has not spoken a lot to us today either. I know we need to talk to her, but we don't know how.
I admitted that my parents and niece are the reason I left, so they ruined my life and reputation. I'm a 29-year-old male and I have a niece, 19-year-old female. When my niece was a little kid, she was unbelievably mean and was downright disrespectful. If no one was around, she would scream and cuss at me, and would do things to me that she would have never done if our parents or grandparents were around. She would spit on me, throw stuff at me, humiliate me in front of my girlfriend, and purposely spill stuff on my clothes. Whenever I told her to leave me alone, she would run to grandma and tell her I was being mean and I would instantly get in trouble. A month before I turned 18, I told my parents that I really wanted to visit New York City over the summer, and she agreed. 2 days before we were supposed to leave, I already got my bags packed and they saved up, booked the tickets and we were all ready to go. I was so excited that I couldn't even put it into words because this was my first time leaving North Carolina. The next day my parents informed me that we couldn't go because they had planned a huge surprise party for my niece, whose birthday was 2 days before mine. They told me that they also miscalculated and going to New York City was a lot more expensive than they initially thought. But, I was told that my niece's birthday party was over $10,000. All of the money they saved up for us to go to New York City was all spent on her party. When I asked them why they couldn't just cancel it instead, they got very mad. My entire family told me I'm an entitled brat and to stop being so selfish. They never canceled the party and I heard all about it from my niece's social media. I was tired of it. 3 months later I packed my bags and moved to New York City. I went to college there and never left after graduating. About 2 weeks ago I got a phone call from an uncle about a family reunion. I thought it would be nice for my sons to meet some of their family members, and my family had never met my wife before, so we went. As soon as I got there I saw my niece. She acted the same as she did before. My aunt asked why I moved to New York City, to which my mother answered for me, saying that it was so I could go to college. I started laughing uncontrollably, and revealed the truth. I told them about everything I went through, and how I was looked at as a stupid entitled brat. My niece was always right and I was always wrong. I told them about all the times she spit on me, pushed me, and called me names and nobody was ever on my side or cared about how I felt. That is the real reason I packed my bags and moved as far away as I could, and why nobody heard from me in over 10 years. My family was absolutely appalled. I was expecting some kind of apology. Instead, they did the opposite. They immediately escorted me out, but not my wife. They flipped the entire story and told my wife about everything I have done to my niece over the years. They told her I was the one who did everything, and not her. Every story was completely flipped in favor of my niece. My wife actually believed them. It has been 2 weeks and I haven't heard from her. She took the kids and cut all contact with me. I'm getting messages from her family and all of my friends about how much of a monster I am. After all of these years they still side with my niece over the years. Safe to say I won't be seeing them ever again.
My neighbor's autistic son keeps breaking into my yard. For the past 7 months, after moving into my new house with my daughter and dogs, the neighbor's 15-year-old boy, who has pretty severe Down syndrome, has increasingly been trespassing on my property. At first, I talked to the neighbors and they expressed their apologies. They vowed to monitor him more while he's in their backyard. However, after a few months, they genuinely do not care anymore and let him roam as he pleases. I've installed security cameras in the backyard and front yard purely for my own safety insurance because we do have a pool. He will climb the 6-foot wooden fence into my yard with a ladder from their shed and let my dogs out. So far, I've stopped him from letting my dogs free, as he says, by using chains and padlocks on the 2 gates. Numerous times if my garage door is open he will leave their backyard and just walk into my house to free my dogs. When he climbs into the backyard and he cannot get back out, he begins screaming and crying and just shuts down. Before I started chaining and locking my gates because of him releasing my dogs, his parents would just walk in, get him, and leave. Now since I've chained it, they've started a huge fit about me having him locked in my backyard, and they have to climb the fence, bring the ladder over, and carry him back. Now I'm not really blaming the kid. He doesn't know any better. He has some very severe issues, and he's damn lucky my 2 German shepherds are super nice. However, last week, I had to draw the line. While I was at work, one of my daughters called me complaining that the kid had once again hopped the fence and was causing a ruckus while she was trying to sleep. She told me that he was trying to open the gate to let the dogs out of the house by banging on the padlocks with a hammer. She told me that his parents weren't home at the time, so she didn't know who to tell to pick him up. A wave of sympathy came over me. I told my daughter to let the dogs out and the kid can play with them. Until I got home. However, I told myself that this would be the last straw. My plan was to return home, bring the kid back to his house, and tell his parents that I will no longer tolerate him being in my yard. I shoot his parents a text saying that I will allow their son to play with my dogs for today. However, today is the last day he can do this. I've had enough. I continue working until I get a notification on my phone from my Ring camera saying that sporadic movement has been detected in my backyard. I shake it off as I assume it's just the kid running around with my dogs. 2 minutes later,
I hooked up with a girl who has revealed to me something extremely disturbing. I've been chatting with this girl. I don't know that I necessarily saw a future with her from the go, but we got along. Started hooking up, and while we weren't exclusive or officially labeled, we were circling that relationship arena after some time. She would sleep over from time to time and I'd stay at her place as well, and this is where it all unraveled. We spent the evening together at her place and decided that I'd stay the night. She showered and got ready for bed before me because I decided to shave my beard and the cleanup took a bit of time. I showered and I was finishing up when I started to hear her giggling and laughing hysterically in bed. I can't hear what she's watching because of the bathroom fan, so I figured she's watching something funny. This keeps on going for a while, and I'm laughing too because she has a contagious laugh. So I'm eager to plop into bed with this girl to see what's so funny. It wasn't funny. It was straight NSFL gore videos of terrorists torturing and unaliving captives, live leak style, people falling off buildings, gang tortures, etc. Now, I've seen all this stuff before out of morbid curiosity, and videos like that make me a bit more cautious about life and gives me a refreshed appreciation for it, but I don't find it funny. This girl was crying laughing, and acted like I shouldn't be surprised. I didn't say anything. I slept with one eye open. This was last night. I changed the door lock code to my house. I don't know yet how I'm going to end this, but it's happening, and in the small off chance you, the girl I'm seeing, reads this, you are freaking crazy.
my husband poured our daughter's ashes into the toilet and threw her urn at me. I had to spend the night in my car last night. I couldn't sleep through crying, trying to stay warm enough, and thinking that somebody was going to suddenly appear at the windows. I've been trying to find a place to park so I can try to sleep today, and I found a place, but I can't rest. I feel so empty and scared. I don't want to go into much detail here, but our daughter passed away very suddenly last year. My husband and I both got help and have tried to work through it together, but his drinking has been getting more and more out of control. It got to a point where he started to try to hide it, but it was making his behavior worse. I had a breakdown 2 months after our daughter passed, and I hadn't been to work since. I had quite a bit put away in savings and some money I inherited, so I was using that to contribute at home while I tried to get myself back in better health. In January, my husband started on his sobriety journey, but his business started to suffer. There were some difficulties through the lockdowns and we both worked hard to make sure the business made it through. He took out a loan earlier this year and I gave him the rest of my savings and started back at work. Things were going well with the business and as well as they could have been for us, until he relapsed last month and was hiding it from me. I lost my job 2 weeks ago and I've been looking for work since. It's been stressful, but nothing we couldn't have managed. Yesterday I got home and my husband was already home and was very intoxicated. It was a very loud and out of control kind of state he was in, and he was slamming around the house saying he was looking for something. I couldn't get much sense out of him and he was really irate. I didn't really know what to do. And when I tried to ask if he was okay, he got in my face and was quite aggressive with me. He randomly started to throw accusations at me, accusing me of all kinds of things that I have no idea where any of it came from. I was scared at that point and didn't want to be in the house with him. I hadn't seen him that angry before, and I think it was a buildup of grief that had come spilling out, but I felt scared. I put my shoes and coat on and told him I was going to head out for a while. That's when he snapped and accused me of trying to leave him. It all happened very suddenly, but he charged at me and got a hold of my arm and tossed me onto the floor and pulled me down the hallway. At some point of him drunkenly shouting about him not letting me leave him, he suddenly stopped and told me he was going to give me a reason to hate him so much. He stormed off into the front room, took the urn with our daughter and headed to the downstairs toilet. I got up and tried to stop him from doing whatever he was going to do. When he went towards the toilet, I was trying to stop him and was pleading with him not to. He shoved me quite hard and I fell. He poured all of the ashes into the toilet and threw her urn at me, hitting my leg. He then started yelling at me to get out before he unalived me. I was shaking and felt like I was frozen, but I managed to get up and run to the front door. I took my keys and my handbag and drove off. I had no idea where to go, so I parked up in a quiet area and just cried. I have done practically nothing but cry since I have no family around and no friends that I can turn to who are close by. I was sick earlier on, but I've managed to keep some water down. I thankfully keep a supply of it in the car. I don't know what to do. I switched my phone off all night in case he tried to contact me. I didn't want to hear from him. He's tried to call me today, but I can't be around him while he is drinking again. I can't let him keep taking his anger out on me like this. I feel like it's all my fault. Everything. I just needed to vent. I'm exhausted of feeling like this.
My best friend of 24 years, born a male, is now a transgender woman. I'm in love with her and I'm not sure if I should tell her. My friend and I have been best friends our entire lives. We're practically brothers. Our parents grew up together, so my friend and I have been together ever since we were little babies. We've always had each other's back, protected one another, cared for each other. My friend transitioned to a female a few months ago. She's completely physically a woman. She's been through hormone replacement therapy these past few years. Seeing her becoming so much more happier is amazing to see. I'm absolutely proud of her. But I'm falling for her, and these feelings aren't going away. I'll admit that I'm in love with my friend. The friend I've known for 24 years is who is stealing my heart, and I don't know what to do. I don't want to lose my friend, but my feelings of friendship for her are turning to romantic attraction. After my friend transitioned, we continued hanging out and talking like nothing changed. We continued going out to clubs/bars, the movies, restaurants, playing video games. Nothing changed. During this time is when my feelings began to change. I started falling in love with her. You know what attracted me? Her, the way she is. My friend is now acting like herself, acting free and full of life, always laughing, dancing and being goofy. It hurts me, because this is someone I grew up with and I'm afraid my feelings are going to push her away or make this awkward. Like always, I'm insanely happy being with my friend, but my feelings for her are killing me right now every time we're together again. I've fallen in love with her true self, and her true self is absolutely beautiful. I've spoken to another close friend of mine about this. I just got made fun of. Ha. You wanna F your bro? Seriously? Is practically what I got. They didn't understand where I was coming from. They didn't understand what an insanely amazing person my friend is. This friend of mine feels it's creepy and nasty that I'm falling for my best friend. They also aren't taking my friend's transition seriously, which is another reason why they're acting immature. All he did was make fun of me, so ever since then I haven't spoken to anyone else about how I feel. Aside from being scared of losing my friend, I'm afraid of what our families will think. What happens if my friend and I do end up together, and our families suddenly start to panic? I'm afraid of not only ruining my friendship, but the friendship our parents have with themselves for many years. Both of our families were completely supportive when my friend transitioned, not a single negative comment. Everyone is proud of her, and the love our families have for her hasn't changed at all. I feel I'm overthinking all of this, especially because being friends is very different from being in a serious relationship. If anything, our families would be insanely happy we're together and be so annoying. But I'm more worried about the negative response, which is why I believe I'm overthinking this whole thing. Plus, if I plan to even confess my feelings for her, I have to do it soon. She's always being asked out on dates, but she tells me she's looking for the right person to spend time with. I feel this is my opportunity to confess, but I don't know if I should. I don't just want to confess how I feel about her, I want an actual relationship with her. I'll love to tell my friend how I feel about her, but I don't want to lose or ruin our 24-year friendship. I also don't want to make it seem that I'm falling for her just because she's now a woman. I don't want her to feel that way at all. What should I do? Update, screw it. I'm going for it. I'm going to ask out my friend. It's Saturday, 1 p.m. right now. I'm going to see if she wants to go on a date tonight. My plan is to take her out on a fun date and I'll confess my feelings during the date. She actually lives a few houses down the street. We live in the same neighborhood/street. That's why we're pretty much always together 24/7 every week. I'm going to message her to see if she's home so I can stop by, and while I'm there I'm going to ask her out. Edit, I got a date tonight. I was insanely nervous walking to my friend's house. But I can't stop smiling because wow, she said yes. I showed up, started talking like usual, and that's when I asked her. I told her I would love to take her out on a date tonight, that I've been wanting to ask her out for the longest time. I definitely tried to hide my face from blushing, because she had a huge smile when I asked her out. She's even extra excited cause we're going to her favorite place. She loves this 80s bar/grill that has karaoke every night and tacos, so that's where we're going. Sounds like an awesome date. I feel asking her out has made her comfortable to flirt with me since she started complimenting me and even kissed me on the cheek before I left. Things definitely felt more intimate. She even said she's going to get extra pretty for the date tonight. I'll admit, I'm really looking forward to that. Although it's impossible for her to get extra pretty, seeing as she's already so beautiful. I'm still shaking honestly. The shakes are more shakes of excitement. I'm gonna pick her in 2 to 3 hours, so I'll definitely be getting ready soon. I haven't gone on a date in quite some time, so I'm really looking forward to tonight, especially with the date being the girl I really love.
My manipulative husband called me vain and materialistic just because I like gifts. When I confronted him, he cried. I'm very interested in skincare, fashion, makeup, and other feminine things. I work hard to afford the things that I want. I'm not very pretty, but I am well put together, and many of my friends compliment me on my outfit or other things I'm proud of. It's a hobby I enjoy. My husband Sean has always been my biggest supporter. He would listen to me and he's always surprising me with gifts of things that I've been talking about or what I've expressed interest in. I'm always appreciative of his incredibly thoughtful gifts and I love them. But things have taken a turn for the worse lately. Recently, a friend of Sean contacted me and told me that I should stop being materialistic and making my husband buy things for me. She said he complained about it a lot. I didn't want to accuse Sean without proof, so I looked through his phone. We know each other's passwords, but I was never given a reason to look through his before. I found countless messages of him calling me vain, materialistic, obsessed with my looks, picky, etc. He also said that I'm not even pretty enough to be that obsessed with myself several times. He was complaining to friends, acquaintances, and people who barely know me. It was so hurtful that I cried for hours. I love my husband and I don't want him of all people to think I'm vain or materialistic. The next day, I decided to give away my stuff, resolved to stop purchasing things, and stop talking to him about them. But then Sean went and gave me a perfume discovery set because I had recently gained an interest in perfume. I thanked him but said I didn't need it. He was confused and asked what was wrong with it. I told him that it was a lovely gift but I didn't need more perfume. I said I didn't want to be materialistic or vain. Sean said that he had seen my textbook on perfume and that I had bookmarked things, so he knew that I was interested in it. He started crying while repeatedly asking what was wrong with his gift and why I didn't like it. He has been very distressed since, but I can't stop thinking about what he said about me. Update: Sean kept asking me what exactly I didn't like about his gift and tried to narrow why I didn't accept it. He said it cost a lot of money, so the least I could do was accept it. That's when I told him the truth. His friend messaged me about how I was materialistic and forced him to buy me things. He looked furious. I said that I had looked at his phone and saw that he thought I was vain and materialistic, so I was trying to change that because I didn't like being called that. He looked even more mad and I was crying at that point. Then he hugged me and apologized. He said he didn't think I was materialistic or vain. He thought my love for my hobbies was cute and inspiring. He loved getting me gifts because I was appreciative and he liked seeing me in things he got me. I asked why he would say those things if he actually didn't think I was materialistic, vain, or self-obsessed. He hugged me tighter and made me promise to still love and stay with him before telling me the real reason he did all this. I was hesitant because I wasn't getting a good feeling about all of this, but I made the promise. He said that he was already fighting for my attention and affection with my friends, family, and my job, so he wasn't going to compete with others too. He pulled out his phone and we read his messages together. When I had first read them, I could barely read them because I was so heartbroken, but as we read them together, I realized that he started the complaining and the other person would start calling me things. Then they would walk away with a terrible opinion of me. I started crying again and he apologized. He said he never meant it and the other people would already think people like me were vain and shallow. In the texts, Sean also insinuated that only he could get me proper gifts. It's true that he's the one person whose gifts were always incredible, but that's because he was very in tune with what I would want, even more than me. I still appreciate other things. I keep every card I've ever gotten and I still have the wrapper of a candy my childhood friend gave me. In the texts, it seems like I'm a shallow, picky person that has high standards only he can reach. I asked him not to talk about me like that anymore. He immediately said yes. He said that he would replenish what I had given away and if I tried to reject it he would see it as spurning his affection.
My wife chose Taylor Swift over me, so I chose divorce. My wife loved Taylor Swift. She had Taylor Swift everything. Taylor Swift was wallpapered all over our home. My wife played her music 24/7. Sometimes I wondered if she loved Taylor Swift more than she loved me. Our 5th wedding anniversary was in a few months and we decided it would be nice if we could renew our vows. Our wedding wasn't very big because we didn't have a lot of money back then. Now that we were doing okay, we decided to have a bigger celebration. We chose a special venue, got a nice dress and tux, got a fancy caterer, the whole 9 yards. We had spent a lot more on the party than I thought we would, but it made my wife happy, so it was a good investment. One day, about 6 weeks out from the party, my wife came home all excited. She said she had gotten Taylor Swift tickets for the upcoming tour. I asked her when the concert would be. She said September 15th. The same day as our wedding anniversary. When I pointed it out to her, she turned pale. She said she was so excited to get the tickets she wasn't thinking about the date. I said, "No problem. You can just sell them." I knew Taylor Swift tickets were in high demand. I thought that she could probably even sell them and make a profit. But my wife said no way. She had been on the computer for hours trying to get the tickets and she wasn't about to let them go. She said they were hard to get and that this might be a once-in-a-lifetime chance for her. We could always postpone the party to next year. The truth was, we could postpone the party to next year, but we had already put deposits down on everything and we couldn't get the money back. We would lose thousands of dollars. Plus having to tell everyone that party was cancelled was going to be difficult and embarrassing. And this was our 5th wedding anniversary. Renewing your vows for your 6th anniversary just didn't seem right. Also, I was her husband.
She didn't even know Taylor Swift. I explained all this to my wife, but she just kept saying how she might never get another chance to see Taylor Swift. We argued back and forth for days, but she wouldn't give in. That's when I told her I had enough. It was Taylor Swift or me. If she wasn't going to sell her ticket for our anniversary party, I was going to divorce her. She told me that if I couldn't understand her love of Taylor Swift, maybe we were better off apart. Then I proceeded to throw all her stuff into a suitcase, including all her Taylor Swift merch. I didn't care if it got damaged. I wanted it and her out of my home. Am I the jerk?
My engaged friend said I wasn't engaged because my boyfriend doesn't want to get married after being together for 3 years. I'm upset because she's right. My friend Elise is engaged to Rick and I am dating Luke. Elise and Rick have been engaged for a year, together for 2, and I've been with Luke for 3 years. The two had their engagement party Sunday afternoon. I was chatting with Elise, looking at her ring, and I'm not going to lie, I felt a bit of envy. Luke and I have talked about marriage, but we haven't even looked at rings yet. He says he wants to marry me, but I do think it's taking a long time. So I asked Elise what made Rick propose to her. She told me that on their first date, she told him that he had a deadline. She wasn't going to wait around for years for a man to marry her. She said she wants kids with the right guy but didn't want to have kids without a stable marriage and a house. Well, they have the house and now are getting married. Another one of her friends said she was shocked it didn't make Rick run for the hills. Elise laughed and said, "Well, it wasn't an ultimatum. It was a fact. If after 2 years you still can't tell if I'm the one, then I'm clearly not, and I will be moving on. Period." I told Elise that if I told Luke that, he would leave me. That's when Elise said that Luke probably isn't the right one if after 3 years he'd leave me for expecting marriage. That hurt my feelings, so I told her that marriages don't always last and doesn't mean someone is the one just because they propose. She said she wasn't worried, that she and Rick were in love and knew life would not be easy, but she's prepared to make it work. She also said she knows marriage isn't for everyone, which is fine so long as your partner feels the same. But marriage is a value of hers, and she wasn't going to waste time with someone who so clearly didn't have the same values of her. That's when her friend asked me what my problem was. I told her I didn't have a problem. Just stating a fact. Then she asked how long I had been with Luke. I said 3 years, and she asked if I wanted to get married. I said yes, and when she asked what about Luke, I just excused myself to the restroom because I couldn't answer. Later when Luke and I left, I told him about the conversation. Luke laughed and called Elise ridiculous. I asked what he meant and he said, "Only desperate and crazy women have a policy like that. Let it happen when it feels right." So I asked him if he wanted to marry me, to which he said of course. I asked why we weren't engaged when we've been together longer. He said he wasn't ready yet and our relationship was fine the way it was. I asked how long he had to wait to know. He shrugged and said, "Does it matter? We're together and that's what is important." He asked me not to be like Elise because he doesn't like being forced to do something. I asked him if Rick felt that way. He admitted that Rick never said he felt forced and that he had been planning to propose to Elise 6 months after they met, but waited a bit to make sure he wasn't just jumping into something. I asked Luke if it would be okay for me to look at rings. He said I could but to not get my heart set on anything because he wasn't ready. He said even if he wasn't willing to spend more than $1,500 on an engagement ring. Elise's ring obviously cost more than that. Rick bought a ring he wanted her to love and did not care about the price. He found the ring she'd like, looked at the price, and saved money to purchase it debt-free. It saddened me that Luke said he was only willing to spend $1,500 on a ring I'm not even allowed to really look for. The two conversations made me really depressed. I'm slightly angry at Elise for her implications but mostly I'm disappointed in Luke. He hasn't mentioned it since this weekend, but it's all I can think about. Is he wasting my time? Edit. Luke told me he wants to get married but admitted he didn't know anymore if he wanted to marry me in particular.
Update 2. My spoiled brother proposed to my fiancée in front of me in order to show me that she never wanted me. So I've been low contact with my brother Mark since our last conversation. I haven't called him and he hasn't called me, and our only interactions have been in family settings. As it stands, my mom is still extremely upset that Mark is still uninvited for my wedding. It started with a comment made during my younger sister Sophie's birthday. Her boyfriend of 4 years proposed to her at the end of the night and we sat around talking about what she envisioned for her dream wedding. She talked a bit about wanting a destination wedding and her ideas for the cake and dress. Then she said to me, "I know Mark's banned from your wedding but you won't care if he comes to mine, right?" I laughed it off and told her I can't get mad about her guest list even if I wanted to. My mom gave me this weird look and asked if Mark was still not invited to my wedding. I told her yes and she got irritated. She told me she thought I was joking and said I was being unreasonable to go through with banning him from the wedding since he's family. She accused me of holding a grudge just to be petty. I reminded her that he and I agreed on him not coming. I also told her she is once again taking his side like she has always done. Sophie laid into my mom a bit about trying to make her special day about Mark and my mom dropped the issue. A few days later, my mom stopped by my house and said she wanted to discuss my wedding. She asked me why I was so adamant about Mark not coming to my wedding. She said that I shouldn't be so insecure about Mark and Jen's previous relationship and that uninviting him was a step too far. She had the nerve to ask me if I'm scared that Jen is still in love with Mark. I laughed at that and told her that Mark and I mutually agreed on him not coming to the wedding and he can come to me about it himself if he has a problem with it. We got into an argument and she said that if I wasn't going to re-invite Mark then she would not be coming either because I'm ostracizing her son. I shrugged and told her if that's what she wants then she can toss her invite in the trash because I won't beg her to be there. She asked me if I would really be okay with her not attending and I told her it wouldn't be the first time she missed an event of mine because of Mark. She said I was being an a-hole for throwing her past mistakes in her face and she stormed out. I then started getting messages and phone calls from her and a few family members about the whole situation saying I was in the wrong and urging me to invite Mark just to keep the peace. Jen's also been getting messages from my mom asking her to talk to me and get me to change my mind, but to my knowledge she hasn't been responding. So far, most of my mom's side of the family are standing in solidarity with her and not attending, while my dad and his side of the family, which is only my aunt and uncle and their 2 kids, agree with me and are still coming. My dad was usually the one who stood up for me too. Him and mom always fought in regards to her favoritism, which she always denied of course. Also, I talked to Mark about it and asked him if he had a problem with not having an invite. He said he uninvited himself in the first place and he doesn't get why they're making a big deal because he still doesn't want to go. He told me to leave him out of the fighting because he's not involved and he says he'd tell her the same. As of now, I'm back to being low contact with my mom, but my dad and I are still on decent terms.
My husband got a paternity test on our daughter, and it came back negative. He accused me of cheating, but the reality was so much worse. I don't know how it happened and I haven't been able to stop crying all day. I've never cheated in my life. I love my husband, we've been together since college and he's the love of my life. He's handsome and kind, and while I've slept with 2 other people, both were before we got together. There is no other potential father for our daughter. We were married already and actively trying for a baby. I don't know why or how it came back negative, but it did, and now he thinks he's not her dad. It's like he become someone completely different from the man I married. He was cold, and was constantly suspicious of me. He kept demanding to see my phone, and wouldn't tell me why. At first I showed him without hesitation, but eventually told him I wouldn't anymore unless he explained why. He's been distant with our daughter too. He stays in his office for hours on end, and I don't know what he's doing. I did not cheat. He accused me this morning, saying he'd done the test after realizing that our daughter's brown eyes wouldn't naturally come from ours, which were blue. He told me to get out of the house. I remember being in my daughter's room crying, and feeling terrified. After letting my feelings cool down, I went to have a conversation with my husband. He was out of his room, and we started discussing things. Once again I tried to tell him that I would never cheat on him, but he wouldn't listen. He said that to ever consider staying in this relationship, I would have to get a list of tests done. He said if even a single one came back as negative, or in favor of me cheating, he would leave me. Just like that. For the following weeks, I was at the doctor's constantly. I was determined to prove my innocence, so I went through with his plan. Well, the final test I got done, as a last-ditch effort, was a paternity test for myself. I thought this was ridiculous, as I was the one who gave birth to her, but I did it anyway. Like I said, I was adamant on keeping my relationship. I got the test done, and they told me it would take a few days before they had the results. Those few days went by like a snail in honey. It was taking forever, and every day that passed seemed to be getting worse. Finally, the day came, and we received the results in the mail. I opened the letter, and to my utter horror, it was negative. I was extremely confused, and when I showed it to my husband, he was even more confused. As it turns out,
I was accused of SAing my ex-girlfriend and it has ruined my life. Now after all of these years, my friends want to talk. Let me just start off by saying that no, I did not SA my ex-girlfriend. I, 24 male, was accused of SAing my ex-girlfriend, 23 female, about 7 years ago, and it has ruined my life. I was a quiet kid in high school who had a small group of friends. I was a band kid, straight A's, that type of crowd. Now in my sophomore year, I met my ex, let's call her Ashley, and we dated on and off over a year. Ashley and I also have a small past together. Her parents worked with my parents and were best friends, and we already knew each other well. We had no issues within the relationship and we saw each other at least 3 times a week. We went to separate schools. Now, I was the one who did the damage. I broke up with her for multiple different reasons, the main one being her sister tried to penetrate me with a kitchen knife. A year goes by, now nearing the end of my junior year, and my buddy, we'll call him Jack, calls me and tells me Ashley is accusing me of SAing her. I hadn't seen her or spoken to her since our breakup, and Jack and my friend group all knew that, so I naturally shrugged it off and thought it wouldn't be too much of an issue, kind of just a friend group rumor type of deal. Now this is where I was wrong. By the beginning of my senior year I had received death threats on numerous occasions, all of my friends turning on me, and it all led to me getting arrested. While I was in holding, someone unalived my dog while my parents weren't home and left a note calling me a rapist. That dog was my best friend through all of this and was the final straw in my decision. The charges were dropped due to the little evidence Ashley had provided. I took my second chance at life and ran away. After high school, which after all the court hearings was only a few weeks away, I had moved across the state losing all of my high school friends, changed my phone number, and deleted all social media. My parents knew I left but had no idea where I was. I was a ghost and it was the way my life had to be. Living on my own wasn't how it always sounds for an out-of-high-school student like myself. I spent the first 2 years hiding away in my apartment. I spent months overthinking and questioning my own thoughts. I went to work and went home. I did not converse with anyone for 2 years, I had no friends, and I was lonely. All I had was my new dog Bosco. Yes, he is named after the bear from Avatar, The Last Airbender. I was living in hell with my only escape being my dog and my games, which I deleted all of my online friends as well. Eventually I met a lovely woman, we'll call her Katie. Katie and I met while I was at the dog park with Bosco. This girl has done everything for me and I love her so much. She hasn't doubted my side since the day I told her and has helped me start my life over, including helping me make new friends. Sorry for the rambling, but I'm nearing the end of the story. Now, last week I had made a new social media account and added only my new friends and Katie's family. My family understands why I did not add them as it would link me to my hometown. I received an odd message request this morning. I looked in disbelief as I saw it was from Jack, asking me where I have been and if I was okay. I did not open it, I just let it be and went about my day. Now I have 5 new friend requests from my old friend group, all of them messaging me asking me where I was and if I wanted to meet up and talk. I decided to message Jack back and told him everything I've been waiting to tell him. You guys turned your backs on me, tarnished my name, and helped Ashley destroy my life and my reputation back in our hometown. Do you really expect me to reply back to you after that? I went on and explained what happened, including how someone took my dog's life. I've spent years in therapy, countless hours of trial and error to socialize again, and what felt like an eternity to trust anyone. I have new friends and an awesome girlfriend, all of which contributed to my success at restoring my humanity. I've been thinking about it all day today and I still don't know if I should give my old friends another chance. Maybe they've grown up and regretted their decisions, or maybe they just expect me to forgive them. If anyone has any opinion on this, please comment. Update: Jack and my other old friends told me everything that happened since I've been gone. To sum it all up, Ashley is an addict and does not live in my hometown anymore. They all apologized to me, but I told them we could no longer be close. The drama and memories would all come back and I've worked too hard to get where I am in life to let some dumb old friends ruin that. After they apologized, they all took turns admitting they regret taking Ashley's side. They told me they have no idea who unalived my dog, also to mention my dog was unalived with rat poison if some of you were wondering. However, none of them understood the fact that I cannot be close with them anymore. I blocked them all. It feels really nice to have closure and not have the consequences of being close with them. Katie really helped me through this and I've read a lot of your comments and I respect everyone's opinion. Also, to touch up on some questions everyone had. Ashley's sister did not like me at all. She also had serious mental health issues that ended up landing her in mental health facilities on multiple occasions. I have no idea where she is now and I honestly could care less. She is a horrible human being and deserves nothing. Ashley admitted to the false accusations some time after I moved across the state. Jack and the others told me they were all at a college party, where Ashley was poop-faced and decided it was a good idea to get frisky with another old friend of mine. His name is irrelevant. She told him she came up with the accusation months after I broke up with her because I was her first love and I deserved it. I guess the crazy runs in the family. The lesson to take away from this: don't give anyone a second chance. They broke your trust the first time and should not be given another chance.
My fiancé left me for the one that got away, but now he wants me back. My fiancé and I had been together 3 years. He was my first boyfriend. We laughed, cried, and were overall very happy together. Our families had mixed really well. Our moms became close friends really fast. He was my best friend, my confidant, my support, my comfort. I looked at him and could see our future together. I'm even crying remembering one time we took a blanket, went outside, and looked up at the stars like in some book. I never thought something like this could happen to me. The man I loved could have never done anything like that to me. It all started about 2 months ago. His high school sweetheart, who he was with for 7 years, moved back to our country and wanted to catch up with Mark. He told me they broke up because they were unable to sustain a long-distance relationship when she left to pursue her postgraduate studies. They hadn't been in contact for 5 years. She sent him an email, he showed it to me and it was completely platonic. She was just curious about what he had become. He asked me if he could meet her and I said yes. I trusted him. So he went, but when he came back he was a bit withdrawn. He is usually really chatty, but he was dismissive when I asked him how it went. I let it go. However, the following weeks he was often on his phone. He picked random fights with me and didn't look me in the eyes when we had intimacy, didn't whisper loving words either. I'm really touchy, and in our 3 years together he had never once recoiled or refused my embrace, but he started doing it. I usually hug him like a koala when he comes back home from work, but he only let me do it twice. It was such a sudden change. I asked him what was wrong, but he just said he wasn't feeling too good nowadays. On a Saturday I went to visit his grandma as we usually knit together, and I was gone the whole day. I feel really close to her because she adopted me easily and reminds me of my own who died when I was in high school. When I came back I found him packing his stuff. My whole world fell apart. He was being so cowardly. He told me he was sorry for making me suffer like this, but sometimes life gives you a second chance and you have to recognize it for what it is. That he loved me, but when he met his ex, he realized the feelings weren't the same. He said he regretted letting go of her. That he had found himself again. That it had been a difficult choice for him, but he had to take this chance. His ex wanted him back. She had realized what she had lost and risked losing for good when he told her he was getting married. He supposedly refused her at first, but as time passed, and they talked together, his old feelings came back. He hoped I would forgive him one day and understand. I cried as he was talking. It sounds stupid, but it was as if it was a stranger in front of me. He said he would still pay rent and part of the bills until our lease was up and I could find another place. He makes a lot more than me and I wouldn't be able to afford living in our apartment on my own. I begged him not to make this mistake, that he was being fooled by an idealized memory of their past together, that he was having cold feet. But he was like a wall, he didn't even look at me. At about 10 p.m. there was a truck outside with one of his friends waiting for him. He apparently came to help him move. I wasn't really close with that particular friend, but he did seem sorry for me. Mark hugged me goodbye and left. I hadn't cried that hard in years. I slept in our spare room not to feel the emptiness of our room with his things gone. I sank to the deepest pathetic depths and tried to call him, but it went to voicemail. I had no idea where he went but assumed he was now living with his ex after 3 weeks of talking again. How ridiculous. I'm really lucky to have supportive friends and family. My best friend even moved in for 5 days. My parents wanted me back home with them, but I wasn't ready to leave. Mark is a bit messy and I love everything clean, so it felt weird having everything perfectly neat. I missed his messiness. It was as if he was the one making our house a home. He used to joke about me wanting the house to look like it was on sale or in a catalog. Not waking up to make breakfast, not seeing him read lying on the sofa while I studied felt weird. Not buying his favorite snack or powder proteins when doing groceries felt weird. I felt really lost at first. It was like grieving. Usually when people break up the relationship goes south, but to me it came out of nowhere. I still loved him, I was still planning the wedding and working on my side to build our future together. It was all gone in a day. I wish I had been smarter and refused to meet his one that got away. His family was dumbfounded. I still went to see his grandma and she told me he was a fool that he would come back crawling to me. She was the first person who managed to make me laugh. Maybe she'll be right.
My son got intimate with our dog. The last couple of weeks my dog, 7-year-old lab, has been acting noticeably different. I guess I could describe it as distant and even depressed. He is normally an extremely outgoing and happy dog, very playful and energetic etc., but starting about 2 weeks ago he started acting very withdrawn and nervous around people, even his own family. At first I kind of brushed it off as feeling under the weather, but after about a week and a half I decided maybe he needed to see a vet. I got him in yesterday and after an examination the vet told me that he believes the dog has been taken advantage of in an intimate way. His butt had slight damage in a way that was consistent with that sort of thing. He said he can't really imagine that his injuries could have come about any other way. So already now I'm pretty upset and sort of freaking out. Who would do this sort of thing to a dog? I thought about all of the people that had access to the dog in my backyard. Gardeners crossed my mind, my neighbors, etc. The only people that live in the house are my wife, myself, and our teenage son. I came home and thought about it for a while. I had this really ugly sinking feeling in my stomach about the possibility that it could have been my son. I decided to look around his room. I didn't really know what I was expecting to find, and I didn't really find anything in there that screamed guilty, until I decided to check his browser history. I found he had been on a forum recently and a site with pictures of that sort of thing. I felt like I was going to throw up. Now I know that this isn't definitive proof of anything, but it sure doesn't look good. The more I think about it, the more I am convinced my son has been fiddling our dog. I haven't told my wife yet or done anything about it. I have not left him alone with the dog since. I am totally confused and upset and don't really know how to proceed with this.
Ada for divorcing my husband during his mental health crisis? My husband, 38M, and I, 38F, have been married since 2009, and we have a preteen daughter. The last 3 years have been particularly challenging for us due to my husband's unfavorable working conditions, which began to affect his mental health. I noticed signs of burnout and depression, consistently expressing my concerns to him. However, he was dismissive and refused to acknowledge his situation or seek therapy. As a result, he became increasingly distant, isolating himself and frequently clashing with our daughter. Eventually, he revealed that he had formed a connection with a woman at work. According to him, their relationship was not physical, but he professed to be in love with her, and considered her to be his soulmate and best friend. He said he was sorry, and that he couldn't decide which woman would ultimately make him happiest. He disclosed this information at a time when I was going through the toughest period of my life, leaving me to cry alone over shattered dreams and plans we had built together. He also told me that in order to clear his head, he would need to leave the house and spend some time on his own. Apparently, that co-worker he had feelings for had offered him her spare room, and he was going to take it. I asked for his help organizing the rest of the school year as I was commuting, and I promised him that as soon as the school year was over, I would look for an apartment closer to my work, and our daughter and I would move out, and he could have the house to himself for his healing. I found an apartment almost immediately, and we moved. He visited us one weekend a month and brought his chaos with him every time. The new home had become a safe haven that we cherished, and he took it over as soon as he appeared, and it felt like I wasn't breathing until he finally left. After 6 months of living like this, I decided I had given things enough time to mend and they had not. I was still hurt and bitter, and he was still cagey about what was going on and what his ultimate decision really was. I told him I was done living like this and that I wanted a divorce. He absolutely lost his temper, left, and drove back to our old house in the middle of the night just to get away from me. A week later, he told me the co-worker is pregnant, and he was angry that I didn't want to even try to fix our marriage. Since then, he has gotten increasingly more hostile and accusatory in his communication with me. He blames me for breaking up the marriage and abandoning him during his crisis. He says he was not himself and has no idea why he did the things he did, but that I was the one who left. He claims I was no help when he needed me and that I had clearly mentally abandoned our relationship long before the current circumstances. He tells me I'm cold and calculating and clearly not the person he thought I was. I understand that he is not well, and he finally did go to therapy. I explained a lot of his actions with that in mind at first. So, am I really the monster he claims I have become by taking his daughter away and leaving? Update 1. The divorce is in process, and I have not seen him in person for some 4 months at this point. He mostly keeps radio silence until it seems he has to unload some hurt on me. I've kept my contact with him to a minimum, only ever messaging him regarding our daughter or requesting him to react to official paperwork or his electricity bills that I've transferred to him. Due to the circumstances in which we started this separation originally, I paid most of his living expenses, mainly since I have a steady job and get paid double his salary. He is still very much incapacitated by his mental health issues, and I wanted to alleviate some of the practical matters for him. Now that we are pulling everything apart, he has been, maybe purposefully, making this into a very slow and frustrating process. Currently, I still pay for his electricity, and he reimburses those bills for me at the end of each month. Sometimes I need to hound him to get paid back. Usually, this leads to him messaging me all day, usually with complaints about how I'm now raising our daughter, now that I have made him supposedly obsolete. Telling me to get a new dad to help me with the job as soon as possible. He seems to try very hard to push my buttons by saying things like, "It must be very hard for you to send your daughter to someone who you loathe and hate so much," and if I make the mistake of losing my temper, even for one swear word, he will turn immediately and tell me to calm down, stop getting so heated, and maybe we should continue our discussion when I'm not so wound up. I have mainly chosen not to engage in these conversations if they start.
My wife silently cries for hours every night and I don't know what to do. My wife and I are college sweethearts. When we met, I was dating someone else, a girl I'll call Fran. Fran and I got along like a house on fire. Fran broke up with me. I was bitter, I wanted her to feel jealous, so I dated the one girl Fran couldn't stand and gave her everything Fran wanted. It was my now wife. Over a decade later and I'm happily married. She's so smart and sweet and beautiful to me. She's my soulmate. She loves me so deeply. I didn't even know it was possible to be loved this much. A few months ago, Fran moved to the city where I live. She reintegrated herself back into our friend group. We're a social bunch. There was a girls' night. They took 2 cars to the event. My wife was supposed to be in one car while Fran was in another. Fran was driving and a driver plowed into the side of the car. I found out that Fran's car was in an accident. I asked about the girls, including Fran. Fran has a couple of broken bones and I didn't ask about my wife. I didn't know. She wasn't even supposed to be in that car. I called my wife. She didn't pick up, but I figured she had heard about the accident. It wasn't until an hour later that I found out that my wife was in the car. She was the most seriously injured since the other car plowed into the passenger side. My wife was a champ, pulled through physical rehab like it was nothing, always had a smile on her face. Everyone was impressed by her attitude and strength. I woke up one night because I was thirsty. Somehow I realized that she was crying and she was doing it silently so I wouldn't wake up. I laid awake for the next few days. She would cry for hours at night, and be good in the morning. When I shift in bed she becomes even quieter, but she still cries. I don't think anyone has noticed that she's sad. All of our friends are still focused on Fran, who is still injured. I don't know what to do. I love my wife so much. I don't know why she's hiding her tears from me.
My entitled sister demanded to have my fat wedding dress because she's pregnant. I refused, so she came up with a solution. Her solution was insane. 2 months ago my younger sister Lucy and her fiancé held a big dinner event with everyone and their mom because they had some big news they wanted to share. They found out a few weeks prior that they are expecting a baby. We were all very excited for them, but as soon as everything settled down, Lucy then stood up and made a toast to me. She said she was thankful for having a bigger in heart and size sister like me to gift my wedding dress to her since she is getting married with a baby bump. I was shocked and tried to ask her what she meant by that as politely as possible. My stepmom responded with, "Don't worry, it's just one of those sister teasings you have never been able to comprehend." I was humiliated by everything and burst into tears in front of everyone. I ran to the bathroom while my stepmom said, "See," mocking me while she told me to grow up. Lucy said I ruined the most exciting news of her lifetime, but that I could not possibly understand that since I have a child-free lifestyle. I then asked her rather rudely why the hell she thought I would be giving her my wedding dress. Apparently her and my stepmom had talked and decided that since my wedding was not until March, and since I am fatter than them, I would not mind just loaning my dress or buying another one since I had saved and invested with my big degrees. I double majored in aerospace engineering and theater, and my fiancé majored in physics and philosophy. Thanks to my degree and skills, I designed my wedding dress, which both of them have always hated. My sister then went on to say that it's okay if it was not altered because I am so much bigger that she'd easily fit even pregnant. Lucy then said that if I don't give it to her then I am no longer a bridesmaid. I told her that's fine and stormed out of the bathroom. Everyone except my dad, Lucy's fiancé, and my fiancé had left. They consoled me and said they would talk to my stepmom and sister about everything before I went home. The next day, Both my sister and my stepmom blew up my phone saying I am destroying the family and clearly don't care about my soon-to-be niece or nephew by not allowing my sister to have my dress. I never responded and ended up getting harassed by a group of people on their side for a whole week. By the end of the week it had gotten so bad that someone left a crap on my doorstep with a picture of my face stuck in it. It only stopped because my brother-in-law told Lucy he would be leaving her if she did not cut it out. Things have been quiet ever since then until tonight when I got a call from my sister saying she has scheduled a termination tomorrow for her baby girl since she can't fit into her dress. She then said that I could stop all of this if I just honored her simple request of giving her my dress. I told her that if she was terminating her baby over a dress then she does not deserve to have any children and her baby girl can be a gift from God to another person who will actually love her and not place fabric over her. She responded that since I am child-free I don't know what a good parent is, the length of a mother's love and could never be better than her. I hung up on her and she sent me a text with a picture of documents showing when, where and time of the appointment. I called her fiancé and told him everything and sent him screenshots of the text she sent. He said she had no clue about the termination or the gender of their baby and was going straight home to talk to her about it.
My religious wife crossed the only line I set for her, so I'm considering breaking up. My wife and I have known each other for 10 years and got married in 2018. We have very different lifestyles. She's a very devout Christian and I am not religious. We found some way to make it work. It was a hard road, but we love each other very much. She has never met my biological mother because I cut her from my life. My parents were divorced long before I met her, and I broke contact with my mom after I turned 18. My mom was extremely abusive towards me growing up. She physically abused me and my sister regularly and tried to frame it on my father. She was able to manipulate a doctor to give me multiple medications growing up and she'd steal the meds. Her dirt boyfriend also tried to be abusive too. I cut my losses and cut all contact with my mother and her family just like my sister. My dad didn't approve of my wife at first because of her religion, but they get along now. When my wife asked me when she'd be able to meet my mom, I told her she never would. She's a violent and terrible woman and she has no place in my life and I didn't want her involved in ours. I made sure to explicitly tell her to not contact anyone in my mom's family. Recently, my mom showed up at my work, which she did not know of. It got ugly, and police had to be called to remove her from the property. She came in trying to throw things at me because I cut her out and would call me things I never wished to hear again. She called me a terrible son for not taking care of her when she needed money for groceries. I didn't want to create a scene so I took all of her anger and waited for the police's arrival. It was such an embarrassment. When I got home, I told my wife, and she just had her, oh poop look on her face. I asked what that was about and she confessed she reached out to my mom and told her where I worked because my mom told her that she wanted to make amends. My wife believes that everyone deserves forgiveness and doesn't believe something could be unforgivable. I told her that violated the one thing I told her was out of bounds and didn't even tell me until it went wrong. She of course has been apologetic. I told her we'd get there, but I needed to get through it. I've been sleeping in the office at home, and we've barely spoken since. We were supposed to travel to her parents for Thanksgiving, but I considered staying home with the dog so I could sort myself out. While she was gone I took the time to think and figured that if she could neglect my opinion regarding this, then very likely she could do the same. When she got home I told her how I felt and how I'm considering breaking up. Update 4, my spoiled brother proposed to my fiancée in front of me in order to show me that she never wanted me. So Mark was my mom's golden child. Here is a full story as to why we never got along. Mark was my mom's baby boy and she didn't do much to try and hide it. My parents didn't spend much time with my sisters and I like normal parents did with their kids unless they had to, but they'd spend time with Mark as often as possible like taking him out shopping while we stayed with a sitter, or bringing him home his favorite food and toys from the store when they'd shop alone. He usually got better things compared to the rest of us like new expensive clothes while ours were thrifted or new toys just for him compared to old toys we had to share with each other. If my sisters and I got gifts, they were for us to share, but my mom made it pretty clear that Mark's things were only for him and we shouldn't touch it. When Mark would screw up, I'd get punished for not being a good role model and showing him the proper way to behave. For example, Mark went through a phase of breaking his toys and my mom laid hands on me until I was hospitalized because obviously he learned the behavior from me. Even though he never did. When he was 8, Mark got in trouble at school for trying to push a kid down the stairs. I was grounded for 2 weeks and told to apologize to the kid for not teaching my brother right. When I turned 13, I pushed for my parents to start giving me an allowance. They agreed as long as I did household chores like mowing the lawn, taking out the trash, raking leaves, etc. It was usually somewhere around $25 a week to help me start saving. Mark saw that I was getting money and he begged my parents for an allowance too. Instead of making him work, $10 of my allowance money was given to him each week because we were doing such a good job with our chores that he never touched. Whenever I asked him to help, he'd tell me it's not his job to do chores. So why should he bother? It was around this time that I started really distancing myself from my brother. By the time I entered high school, we only talked to each other when we needed small favors or when we absolutely had to. I got my first job when I turned 17 because I wanted to finally get my own car and make money that they couldn't force me to give to Mark. My oldest sister Maggie helped me start my own bank account and showed me how to properly budget and save my money. I got my first car at 18 after all of my hard work. When Mark got his license, my parents asked me to let him use my car to get around and for extra practice behind the wheel. Reluctantly I agreed and for a while the arrangement was fine. Mark used my car when I didn't need it and helped maintain it pretty well. When he expressed wanting my parents to buy him his own car, my mom came to me and told me to give him my car because he needed it more. When I refused, she threatened to kick me out. We got in a fight that night which ended with her giving Mark my car and taking me to transfer ownership of it to him within the following few days. Since I didn't have anywhere else I could go at the time, I just sucked it up and signed it over. When I graduated high school, both of my parents skipped my graduation because Mark didn't want to sit in a long ceremony just to see me get a piece of paper, and my mom didn't want to leave him alone for the night. So I only had the support of my sisters and my aunt and uncle who wanted to take me out. They ended up having to bring me home at my parents' request because they made me dinner to make it up to me. It was a dinner I couldn't eat because my mom put shrimp and chicken on the same serving dish and I'm allergic to shellfish. But Mark loved shrimp, so they made it with shrimp. In my first year out of high school I worked 2 jobs to buy myself another car, and at the start of the new school year I moved away for college and cut contact with them. My mom tried to reach out for the first few months via social media, and Sophie guilt-tripped Sophie into trying to contact me too, but I never responded and I told Sophie she would be cut off too if she kept trying. When she couldn't get to me through Sophie, she tried going through my older sister Charlotte, and a few times through Maggie and Mark until I threatened to file a restraining order for harassment. It was a bluff because I had no idea how to do it, but it managed to scare her off and the most I got from her was happy holiday texts over the years. Around the time I moved back, Charlotte told me they had been seeing a family therapist and my parents wanted to apologize for their treatment of us. I was hesitant but I agreed as long as they would be genuine, and the reconciliation process started when I moved back home.